Happy New Year, ladies and gentlemen. This is the first Draft Utopia episode of 2026. And this is the part where Joey were here, he'd complain that I saved the good intro for this show, like in Big Daddy, the good surprise, the bad surprise, the beginning of Big Daddy. But yeah, we're here to talk about football, not Adam Sandler movies, even though I do have Mud Dogs jersey. But that's not the point. We've got 5 kicker rankings. Basically, we've got 4 topics for this show. We've got the top 5 kicker rankings and basically the third round of the MLS draft content and maybe some of the soccer free agency stuff, other things we've heard. And then the football predictions and the punter rankings are going to be in the other show that I have currently scheduled for 11 a.m. And believe me, the punter rankings suck. I said yesterday on Under the Bleachers, even though I put 5 kickers, 5 punters, 5 fullbacks in my yearly rankings, there's only 2 punters I would draft. That should tell you everything you need to know. But we're not going to focus on the punters right now. We're going to focus on the kickers because the kickers are where it's at. And can't say Matsuzawa. Can't say Matsuzawa is a guy. Joey inquired about him a few weeks ago when I think it was actually after the linebacker rankings. Joey inquired about this Matsuzawa guy. I knew nothing about him at the time, but now he is the consensus best kicker, 6'2", 200 from Tokyo, Japan. He has made 93.1% of his field goals this year, 27 for 29, 1 for 2 from 50 yards, 10 from 10, 40 through 49, 10 from 11, 30 through 39, 5 for 5 from 20, 1 for 1 from a 19 yards, 40 for 40 on extra points as well. His long for field goals is 52 yards, so 121 points for the Hawaii Warriors. And yep, this is the same Kensei Matsuzawa. This is the same Hawaii kicker that Joey subtly brought up. Didn't know his name. Didn't want to pronounce Matsuzawa. This is not a hard name to pronounce compared to other names like Ato Agbonina or other names, Adwabore from Northwestern, names that are much harder to pronounce. Matsuzawa is peanuts compared to those other names that are much harder to pronounce. I can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
Now I can hear you. Now I can hear you.
Okay,
now I can hear you.
Perfect. I was going to say, man, that this is kind of where we murder names anyways, I mean, I got to find out where old Logan Landers, he used to get the name pronunciations from somewhere.
But Matsuzawa is a kicker I have around 4 grade on. Because I do agree with Joey that he's a much better kicker than advertised, but at the same token, I haven't seen enough to where I could put him in day 2 yet. And yeah, Aguayo got an unnecessary amount of hype in his draft year in 2015. And frankly, the only reason Jake Moody went as high as round 3 is because not only was he the kicker of the national champion Michigan Wolverines at the time, he was the first kicker to be MVP of a senior all-star game, whether it's the Senior Bowl or the Shrine Bowl. Kickers never win MVPs at those all-star games, but he made a 70-yard kick in warm-ups, and it was a low-scoring Shrine Bowl that year that I went to. Got a media pass that year because I wanted to see the Patriots coaching staff at the Shrine Bowl. And I got to see Zay Flowers that year. But it's like it's just a very. How do I say this? It's just a very underwhelming Shrine Bowl game. I had fun, but it was, for his terms of scoring, it was an underwhelming game. And Jake Moody was the MVP of that game. He interviewed really well. Ultimately, that's what bumped him up to the 3rd round. That's probably why the Niners drafted him. They thought they were getting the next Adam Vinatieri, and then they ended up getting burned. But he's had some success in Washington since being cut by the Niners. He was on the Bears practice squad, I think, as well. So, yeah. I'm not sure how much better Eddie Pinero's been for you guys than Jake Moody, but,
Oh, he only missed 1 field goal, and it was the other day.
Yeah, so, and that's like great for your 49ers, but
since
I think the 4th round grade for Matsuzawa is fair because I don't think he's as talented as Moody was coming out of Michigan, but at the same token, I'm willing to acknowledge how a lot of scouts and Joey think this is an exceptional kicker. I'm willing to acknowledge that. So I do have a round 4 grade on this Hawaii kicker. It is the only round 4 grade among this entire kicker class, and I think that's more than fair.
With Moody was that every time he kicked the ball, he kicked the living shit out of it. He didn't know how to take anything off, and you'd watch that ball start to spin and curve a little bit and then miss. It was like, oh, wait a minute, And I was real vocal about him. I might be an NFL place kicker, but it won't be for the Niners, and that was before the Niners cut him. And it's kind of interesting. I'm sitting here looking. I pull up my favorite BS website, NFL Draft Buzz, with their copy and paste rankings. And under special teams, the only kicker they have is this Dominic Zavada out of Michigan.
Well, Dominic Zavada was the preseason number 1 kicker, William. And in their defense, he was the preseason number 1 kicker. He's now my 5th best kicker. He's now the last guy on the list, but he was the preseason number 1 kicker in NFL Draft Buzz's defense. And the only college that has a
kicker they have listed under special teams.
Yep. But the only school to have a kicker and punter listed in these draft rankings is UGA, Georgia. Peyton Woodring, the kicker for Georgia, is the number 2 kicker in this draft. He is. I have a 5th round grade on Peyton Woodring. He's got a little bit better leg than the Lou Groza Award winner. Tate Sandell was the Lou Groza Award winner, so I figure we'll put a round 5 grade on Woodring, and we will put a round 5 grade on Sandell. I think that's the fairest way to go about this, William. I think as far as the talent evaluation part of this goes, I would argue that's the fairest way to go about this. And life's not always fair. I'm the first to acknowledge that, but I would say as far as the kickers go, that is the fairest way to that's the fairest way to go about this.
I don't know anything about these kickers, so I'm sitting here looking up some of these guys.
Yeah, can't say I have 5 kickers with an 85 potential. Can't say Matsuzawa, Hawaii. I thought I had like an 87 on, but there's 5 kickers that have borderline starter grades. So it is kind of a clusterfuck this year. Peyton Woodring. You got Tate Sandell, the Lou Groza Award winner at Oklahoma. You got Lucas Canario, the Ole Miss kicker. He's number 4 on this list. And then you have Dominic Zavada rounding out the top 5. So those are the kickers. And Zavada had a preseason grade of 85. He's now listed at an 83, but I'm going to keep him in the 85 category because we need a 5th kicker. And Zavada I feel like he's done enough to remain in that 5. But
Agreed.
yeah.
Agreed.
Peyton Woodring. I'll get to Peyton Woodring in a second here, because I do want to pull up more intel, not just the grades, not just the overall grades, but what these other kickers outside of Matsuzawa did at the collegiate level. Now, Peyton Woodring, 100% on extra points, 89.5% of his field goals, 105 points, and a long 53-yarder. So 3 field goals made on 50-yard attempts this year for Peyton Woodring out of Georgia. Tate Sandell, Oklahoma kicker, he had a long 55-yard field goal, 107 points. He is a junior. He can go back. I think he's going to declare because he's the Lou Groza Award winner, but he's technically a junior, so he could technically go back next year if he wanted to. And if he does, that's just going to screw up these rankings to the point where I'm not even sure I'm going to add someone else. Lucas Carnerio, kicker 4, is also a junior. I really didn't put a lot of stock into whether these kickers were juniors or seniors. William probably should have, because these are the best kickers in college football, and there's not anyone else that I feel like we've underlooked as far as possible nominees. And Zavada, 56-yard field goal, 6'3", 187, ideal size, successor to Jake Moody. Michigan building that kicker factory. So, again, this is just a pick your poison. Which kicker do you think is going to help us? It's like having 5 really intriguing flavors of ice cream, but you don't know which ice cream you want. That's basically the best way to describe this kicker class. But there are options. There's quite a bit of good options. But I think Matsuzawa, the fact that he's gotten as much buzz as he has, that's why he came in at 1 in my kicker rankings. But you could make an argument for Woodring at 2, or Sandell at 2, or Canario at 2 through 4. It's really that even, and I'd say Zavada's 5. Even if some are lower on him now versus the beginning of the year, I just feel like he's the last guy you could legitimately put in these rankings. And that's really all there is to say about the kickers, I think. Double checking restream. Yeah, holy crap, 11 minutes. This is going by. All right.
Yeah, Zavada got, 21 out of 22?
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
It's that. And then I see this Trey Smack kid out of Florida, 18 of 21 with a long of 55. Seeing Matthew Dennis from Wake Forest, 16 of 20. Didn't miss an extra point. Longest 42 yards. Well, that's not going to cut it in the NFL.
And for everyone saying we're done with the kicker rankings, William's bringing up a few honorable mentions because these honorable mentions are important, because if one of the 2 junior kickers from Oklahoma or Ole Miss goes back to college, someone else is going to moving up in this list, and it's going to create a ripple effect. So you might want to pay attention to that little detail William just brought up, because it's a much more important detail than you realize.
Yep, that's for sure. The only other 2 I'm seeing is Will Farron out of BYU, 24 or 27, long of 56, and Drew Stevens from Iowa, 20 of 23 with a long of 54. They're trying to say this draft class is considered stronger than average, but obviously.
All right, so last round of MLS Draft Grades. I broke down rounds 1 and 2 last week. I recapped round 1 briefly. I broke down round 2 in depth. And with William, we saw the Ricky Lewis interview. So round 3, because I didn't really get a chance to do grades on the show because the picks flew in so fast. And there were players that weren't even on my simulator that got picked. So, all right, round 3, final round. Luka Nikolai, he fell to the 3rd round. I know he had him in the top 10. He was one of the last players picked, as hard as that is to believe. But DC United, they took Stefan Najike. I posted the caption of DC United. But, DC United, they ended up with 3 of my first-round guys, Najike, Nikola Markovic, the North Carolina center back, 6'4", 205, goes number 1. Then they got Richie Amen at 8 with the trade with New England, and then they got Najike in round 3. So I think that was a good way to start round 3 for them. And then Atlanta got Noah James, who I had a late first-round grade on, really good defensive midfielder at 62. So a lot of teams. Tate Lawrence was the 3rd-round pick, and yeah, Tate Lawrence, he played the 10 at attacking midfielder, but the production, 6 goals, 5 assists, 17 points, is slightly underwhelming. And I'm at the point where I just do not have any confidence in Montreal's ability to develop talent. They trade their number 3 pick in the draft for $350K in allocation money. Michael Adudokin was the Herman Trophy winner last year. They cut the Herman Trophy winner after 1 year. I mean, the best in college sports. You've got Herman Trophy for soccer. You've got the Dick Hauser for baseball. You've got the Naismith for men's and women's basketball. You've got the Hobie Baker for hockey, and you got the Heisman for football. these awards matter. So if you're cutting a player who got 10 goals, 12 assists at midfielder, who won the Herman on #1 Ohio State after their rookie year, the only reason he fell in the draft is because he required an international roster slot, didn't have a green card. That pissed off some teams, and he was the best player in college soccer, and you got him at 11 and you cut him after 1 year. I'd say that might be a team problem versus a him problem, but this is a team that's just screwed up in the draft so much since launching in 2012. They took Andrew Wenger over Darren Maddox and other good players in 2012. My number 2 player in 2015 was Christian Roldan. He fell to the Seattle Sounders. They're still a powerhouse. Roldan's still in the league 10 years later. And they took Romario Williams. They took Grayson Duty 2 years ago. Grayson Duty had 0 goals, 0 assists, 0 points, 0 shutouts as a right back, and his last name was Duty. If I had said that in a scouting report, you and Joey would have been like, we're just going to take this guy off the board. We're not even going to give him a grade or projection. This is just awful. This is like the worst prospect ever. And he goes 10th overall. So, honestly, I just don't trust this team. This team has effed up so many times in the draft that I think you could make an argument that CF Montreal is more snake bitten than the New York Jets or the Cleveland Browns. I really think you could make that argument. They are the most snake bitten franchise in sports as far as developing talent goes. Now, Blake DiAgostino, I moved him in the second round, got invited to the college showcase. I heard he was a great interview from Kick a Ball Pod, who I co-hosted the Super Draft with. Sebastian Conlon was a goalie in my top 50. LA Galaxy needed a backup. This is a good addition in round 3. Really good value. Olayinka Oganyel, 6'4", 190, center back. I had him going 60 at first at the top of round 3. Really good value for FC Dallas. And again, we did a poll question. FC Dallas got 4 of my top 18 players, and they got my number 1 and 2 players, 4 of my top 18 players. They got an Italian defensive midfielder, and they got Oganyel at 66. We put FC Dallas's draft this year up with the Mavericks 2018 draft, where they got Luka Doncic, Jalen Brunson. The Stars 2017 draft, where they got Miro, Ottinger, and Robertson. And we put their draft up with the Dallas Cowboys, 91 Cowboys. They finished second. FC Dallas this year finished second behind the 91 Cowboys. I didn't even think they were going to get any votes. The Mavericks were the team that did not get any votes, which is insane. But that's another topic for another day. I think Mavs fans are just pissed off that they couldn't keep Luka or Brunson long term. They let Brunson walk and sign with the Knicks for nothing, and then they traded Luka to the Lakers. So I think Mavs fans are just pissed because they had 2 really good players that were both all-stars, but they couldn't retain either one. But they did get Cooper Flag out of Duke. But yeah. Minnesota, they ended up getting this pick from the Red Bull, from the New York City FC. Aiden Bengard is interesting because his dad, Alex, was on the 2002 LA Galaxy. And Aiden's a freshman redshirt. And there's an MLS rule that states you have until 2 years after you draft the player to sign him. Since Aiden Bengard's a freshman redshirt, he technically has 3 years of college eligibility. So does the MLS have to make an exemption for him and give Minnesota up to 3 years to sign him? I think an exemption is warranted here, but I'm not sure what the rules are. So because I'm not sure what the rules are, I can't give this pick an A+ grade. Kyle McGowan, he's the striker on the Denver Pioneers, offensive player of the year. New England needed a striker in the worst way possible, and they got a striker in round 3. But looking at the revolution, looking at the I made a Rob Kraft timeline this morning of everything Rob Kraft has done in the last 365 days. It's actually pretty impressive. And you can make an argument that Rob Kraft was the best owner in 2025. Fires Mayo and Van Pelt, releases renderings for an upgraded team facility where the players work out, which is going to be in New England next year. Free agency, they crushed the draft. Elliott Wolf gets promoted to GM. Start out 0-2 at Gillette Stadium, go on the 10-game winning streak. Revolution, they drafted the players I mentioned last week and this week, despite trading their first-round pick away for allocation money, going 8-0 on the road. Oh, and on New Year's Day, Rob Kraft released MLS stadium renderings for a new Revolution Stadium in Everett, Boston, since the New England Revolution, the New England Patriots split Gillette Stadium, the football field. Since the soccer team and football team share Gillette Stadium, Rob Kraft actually released renderings for a soccer-only stadium for the Revolution, and it will be in Everett, Boston. That's where the soccer team will play, whereas Patriots will just continue to play in Foxborough, Massachusetts. So, and very cool stuff by Rob Kraft. The fact that he was able to get all of that done in a year, I think that would be my argument for Rob Kraft as the best owner in sports this year. Not all time, not among all NFL owners in the MLS, but for this year, Rob Kraft basically ran through a 10-step program in 360 days. Patriots team facility, Revolution renderings. We're either going to get Patriots renovation renderings or new stadium renderings for the Patriots by 2030 at the rate Kraft's going, William. It's impressive. Had to briefly acknowledge it. You want to say anything about
2030 as well? Yeah, like I just said, man, the Patriots probably get another Super Bowl by 2030. You know, they draft the best quarterback in 2024, Drake May. You know,
they're going to get
one. Put this team together like none other, man.
They're going to get one, I think. They're still 8th in cap space. They have a lot of good draft capital. Augustin Resch was a guy that I had in the third round of my mock. I thought this was about where he should have gone. Coven Johnson. He helped High Point get 10 shutouts. Joey Mueller. Joey Mueller was a player. I love the variety of midfielders that New York City got. So even though this guy wasn't on my board, they went attacking midfielder round 1, central midfielder round 2, and then we went defensive midfielder round 3. So Jay Mamaro, this was the guy from Madrid that we had in the simulator, if you remember. I think he fell because of his size, but he does everything at a high level, whether it's scoring goals, getting assists. Talked about how this team had championship aspirations. Fell to the Galaxy. I'm very happy. The Galaxy are my favorite team. So the fact that a player that we had in the top 12 just slipped to us in the third round, I'm very happy about that. Now, Braden Beason.
Great value.
It is great value. Braden Beason goes to the Real Salt Lake. I had him in round 3. Mitch Ferguson. I ended up moving him up to number 14 in my final mock because he was part of the Portland Timbers Academy. I wasn't sure if he was going to be eligible for this draft. He was eligible for the draft, and he's the most accurate passer among center backs in college soccer since Ethan Bartlow. His size, positioning, his intelligence, it stands out. And I did mock Ferguson to Orlando in my final mock, which was released on the day of the drafts. And Orlando ends up taking the guy that I mocked. So I did get a pick correct, but they took him 2 rounds later. So I know for a fact Orlando read this site before making the pick. Look, it's weird. There's really only 3 people that made MLS mock drafts this year. Travis Clark of Top Drawer Soccer, myself, and Mark Kelkenberg, the guy who blocked me on his Twitter handle. He made a 3-round mock, but he didn't make a simulator like I did. He did a mock draft, but it was all in Excel sheets, Excel spreadsheets. That was basically how him and his buddies did the mock. And he's a former accountant that loves college soccer. So it's like, yeah.
Well, it's like I was saying last night on Under the Bleachers, you're the most thorough, draft analyst there is, and you
Here's
cover
the thing
every draft that there is.
I would
man.
advise for anyone
Every
in this
draft.
industry, never block your enemies, because if your enemy makes an extra copy of something that you would like and they beat you to market, that enemy holds all the leverage in the negotiations, and you have none because you decided to block them like a freaking imbecile instead of trying to figure out.
I've been
Like,
blocked by so many of those guys, freaking
and
on, especially on Twitter.
I don't think Travis blocked me on Twitter, but he restricted me from messaging him. I can live with that. It's not a block. That's a no DMs. No DMs versus blocks are two different things. They both function in a similar capacity, but they are two completely different things, William. But
yeah,
neither's great, but I can live with the no DM rule. I can respect that.
I think it's funny how Twitter actually tells you that people block you.
I agree.
I've gotten a
It
few of
used to
those.
never be that way until Elon bought Twitter, and I love that Elon changed it.
Yeah,
because it was never that way under Jack Dorsey.
It's like, oh, that's what happened to that guy. I haven't seen him for a while.
Because what happened is I mentioned Zay Flowers and what he was doing at the Shrine Bowl on Jim Nagy's timeline leading up to the Senior Bowl that year, and I think that pissed him off because Puka Nacua was at the Senior Bowl, and I ended up getting blocked.
Yeah.
I'm not pissed. I honestly just felt like, both guys deserve their love. Both guys deserve their flowers. And he's like, nope, only the guys that come to my All-Star game get the flowers. And now he's Oklahoma's athletic director. So.
Yeah, that's all right, though.
Whatever. He got 4 rings as a scout. He earned the right to nitpick, critique players as he wishes, but whatever. Yeah. I'm over it. Let's focus.
Doesn't mean he was right.
No, it really doesn't. No, because the NFL scouts told Jim Nagy that in 2023, Jackson Smith-Njigba was the only first-round receiver. That was false. I knew that was BS. I knew someone else was going to get pushed up. And Jackson Smith-Njigba wasn't even the first receiver drafted that year.
Mm-hmm.
Quentin Johnston was. And then I think Smith-Njigba went, and Zay Flowers also went in round 1 that year. And I think someone else did too, but I just don't remember them at the top of my head.
Quentin Johnston only plays when he thinks he's getting the ball. I watched that so many times at TCU.
Yeah, and it's funny because at the beginning of the year, he lost the slot receiver job to Ole Miss receiver. Trey, I can't think of his last name. Damn it.
Oh, it's right on the tip of my tongue. But yeah, you're right.
He lost the slot receiver job to the Ole Miss receiver they took in the second round. And then that rookie underperforms and Johnson capitalizes. But it's not like he's genuine. You don't get the sense he genuinely cares. It's just transactional. So he can eat, how do I put this? He's only competing. He's not competing his ass off like Ladd McConkey. He's doing the bare minimum and only stepping up in spades when he's in jeopardy of losing his job,
Yeah. And it was one thing, I put in
I gave him the benefit of the doubt last year because he led the team in touchdowns. This year, that's not the case. He's reverted to his rookie form, and he's only competing his ass off when he's wide receiver 4. Once he does enough to be wide receiver 3, he goes back to doing nothing again.
Yeah, and that was everything, man. If I was a defensive player playing against him, I would key on him every play. Be able to see how he steps when the ball is snapped. If he steps hard, he thinks he might be getting the ball. If he's slacking, then he's not getting the ball, and it's just like, dude, I'd be keying on that all day. Pointing it out. As a
Kyle Durham went to San Diego. I had him at 31. Patrick Caeli I had going 33rd. He went to Austin FC at 77. So, because what I did when I created my draft simulator, I looked at my mock, I looked at the top 30 Travis did per top drawer, and I looked at the spreadsheet Mark made, and I tried to figure out, okay, what guys have the highest average ranking of the three of our draft boards, and who have I watched tape on, and who stands out. Patrick Kaeli's a guy I had going early round 2. 9 shutouts at midfielder for the Penn Quakers. Yeah, that's a good third-round pick. Austin Brummett, striker for Connecticut. Started out at San Diego State. He transferred to UConn. Isaac Heffes, 5'11", 175, slightly undersized for a center back. Nashville got Charles Emil Brunette. He actually led SMU in assists and points, and SMU won the ACC tournament, but they didn't do as well in the conference play. Seattle Sounders took Stockton Short. They already have Stefan Frey back as their starter, and they have 2 quality goalies. If they wanted a goalie, they should have taken somebody like Mitch Budler or Jeremy Abonel, who led St. Louis to the Final Four. This Utah Tech goalie they drafted, yes, he's bigger than both goalies in terms of size, but he only played 6 games before a season-ending injury at Utah Tech ball schools. I've heard of Utah Valley. I've never heard of Utah Tech until this year, but I've heard of the Utah Valley. Utah Valley is a popular soccer program. They're not popular in football, but I've never heard of the Utah Tech Trailblazers. So that is a new. And here's the thing. A lot of teams draft guys that still have NC eligibility left because it gives them a reason not to sign them. Because back in the day, teams used to pass on picks in the MLS draft. They didn't want to draft any more players. But because the MLS added more sophomores and juniors to the draft-eligible pool, teams are now not passing on picks. And guess what? The league likes that they're not passing on picks. But teams can still draft a guy and not sign him to an MLS contract. Since the contracts are optional, they're not mandatory, and you have the allocation money. Joey does not like the allocation money rules either. But yeah, Jaheim Wickman, Central Florida, goes to Dave Tepper, former Syracuse goalie. And then Michael Mraz, an Evansville goalie, who is number 98 on And Dane St. Clair is a good goalie. He was the MLS goalie of the year. He just wanted to play with Messi. And he was the best goalie in the league. So if Messi, the best soccer player in the world, is making $12 million a year with Miami, and you only offer the best goalie in the league $1.6 million, and Miami offers him less, and he takes less money to go to a better team, you can't call the player selfish. You're a smaller market. If you want to keep a star goalie you drafted, who's the goalie of the year, his contract's up, you have to pay more, even if it means paying out the rear end. That's how contracts work in other sports. Minnesota is not an exception. In fact, you can make an argument Minnesota is possibly the most snake-bitten franchise in all of sports. I mean, because they have not had a championship since the if you count the Lynx in the WNBA, yeah, they've had some success, but the Lynx is their most successful franchise over the past 20 years. They've not had success in baseball since the early 90s. They've had more recent success with the Timberwolves. The Wild are starting to hit their stride, but the Vikings, I mean, outside of the 99 NFC Championship, it's been a rough latter half of the millennium for the Vikings compared to what they did in the early 70s with Tarkenton. So, yeah, I would argue Minnesota probably is the most snake-bitten sports town. Ian Wagner goes to LAFC. Lassie Kelp was a guy I mocked at 30 in my final mock. So DC United, while they reached on their second round pick, took my 72nd best player at 31. They got my 30th best player at 85. They had 2 third-round picks, so they actually ended up with 4 first-round talents, not 3, because I discounted the Lassie Kelp pick. But that was Cincinnati's pick. They got that in a trade. So he will go straight to the MLS next team. Lassie Kelp was the German center back you took in the simulator. So DC United got him with the 6th to last pick. Jabari De Cato went to the Rapids. Luka Nikolai. So New York City FC had a great draft. And to illustrate how great their draft was, they did not have a pick until 27 in the first round and 87 in the third round. There's 30 teams. They're one of the last 4 teams picking, and they still got my 6th and 7th best player in this class. They made the Eastern Conference Finals and still got my 6th and 7th best player. So New York, they are a winner of this draft. And if their rookies develop, they will be positioned very well. Gilberto Rivera to San Jose, San Jose State to San Diego, Connor Laffey, the Washington Huskies, and Maximilian Kissel, the leading scorer on last year's national championship Vermont team, Mr. Irrelevant. So that was the draft. I will pull up some MLS news here, and then I'll pull up some stuff on the simulator. Like, when I say I'm pulling up the simulator, I'm not going through the simulator again. I'm just giving you updates on some of the undrafted players and what ended up happening with them. And why do we make the font white? So it's clearer, it's easier to read. It was a necessary change because if we're going to make killer first impression with our NFL stuff, we have to. Markovic went to DC United in real life, but regardless, I'll reload this again. And I wanted to look at some of the undrafted players where they went briefly. I will keep this to 2 to 5 minutes max. Mitch Butler, he's going to go to. Mitch Butler did sign with a team. I've got it right here. Mitch Butler signed with. He signed with Lionsbridge FC. That's the team Ricky Lewis played for in USL2, and Lionsbridge is in Lincoln, Nebraska. They are a USL2 team in Lincoln, Nebraska. So Marius Stenner, I'm not sure if Marius Stenner signed with a team, but he was. If he didn't, he's eligible for next year's draft. Okay, so Marius Stenner, the CAA Rookie of the Year and the Summit League Player of the Year as a sophomore, went undrafted. That's probably your number 1 pick in 2027. Well, the 6'1", 179 size, probably why he was picked so late. Mitch Ferguson, Olfer Bjornsson out of Duke went undrafted, the striker from Iceland. I think when he came back from his injury mid-season, he looked a lot slower, a lot less explosive. That definitely played a role in him going undrafted because he had 2 seasons of 10 or more goals his first 2 years at Duke. Preseason number 1 pick, goes undrafted. The fact that he looks slower and less explosive at 6'3", 187, that definitely played a role in him going undrafted, William, whether teams want to admit that or not. That definitely did play a role. Jeremy O'Bonnell took St. Louis to the Final Four. He was money on penalty shots, but the drawback was he was 25 years old. He went undrafted. He is still not signed with a second pro or second club team. Lucas Camrath, 6'4", 200. He signed with a MLS Next team. I'm not going to go through all of these. Dren Dobra, Pablo Pozos is going back to West Virginia. 6', 170. Dobruna was the first college showcase name announced. 5'10", 137, only a true sophomore. Jackson Levitt's a senior. He went undrafted. Najike went to DC United, but you could see a lot of these guys. Mitchell Baker went to the Rapids, William. That's a guy you picked in the simulator. The Rapids took Baker 10th overall. I know you're happy about that. Another Delaware guy that went undrafted. All right. Jesus DeVince went undrafted, but he got signed to a team the day before the draft. And I don't think I need to keep reading through the list. I mentioned most of the bigger names, but the guys who are eligible to return to college soccer, I can just copy paste their info into the 2027 simulator. That's less work for me to do. That's going to make the simulator easier to keep track of in future draft classes. All right. Let's get to MLS free agency here. The news. MLS news, and then we're signing off this show and focusing on football from this point forward. So, what's happening in soccer? Walker Zimmerman, former U.S. defender, is going to Toronto. And Kai Wagner, So the Philadelphia Union have traded their leading goal scoring strikers 27, $500,000 allocation money. They trade their best defender to the LA Galaxy for another $500,000 allocation money. And now Kai Wagner, who led the Union in assists with 7 at left back, has been traded to Birmingham City, an English Premier League team. So I really don't understand what the hell the Philadelphia Union are doing. Andre Blake, who they drafted number 1 overall at goalie in 2014, he's been part of 2 Supporter Shield teams and part of the MLS Cup in 2022, and you're basically trading away every player that complements your star goalie for allocation money, not even draft picks or other star players. I know Messi's a pain in the ass to play against, but by trading away all your good players, you're basically folding. You're folding to Lionel Messi. And you traded 3 years of first-round picks to Colorado. You traded 3 years of number 1 picks, number 2 and number 3 picks to Colorado. So if you do that, William, you don't have the luxury of trading your best players that are on the roster away in addition to draft picks away because you trust your academy. I don't know whether to criticize you for being stupid, the Union. I don't know whether to criticize the Union for being stupid or to criticize them for being arrogant, because I feel like it's a little bit of both. All right.
Agreed, man. That doesn't make any sense because, I mean, you can do so much
In
with
NFL
that.
terms, this would be like trading Deshaun Watson, Grant Delpit, and Denzel Ward to another NFL team. And Joey would be pissed if Delpit and Ward got traded, but I think he'd throw some confetti in the air in Jacksonville if Deshaun Watson got traded and another team took on the salary of his contract, because the Browns would be free of that contract. All right. I think we've pretty much covered everything MLS related. It's 10:56. Got 4 minutes till next show, and I've got to get the other stuff updated for week 7. So we will sign.
I've got one thing just to say here. I'm sitting here reading, and during the night, there was a strike on Venezuela, and we snagged President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, and they have been charged and brought back to the U.S.
Yep.
Got them. That's over with. Cool. Anyway,
I'm just making sure we screen shared everything soccer related for round 3 before we actually forget about this draft and focus on the other drafts that more of our fans and readers care about. But yeah, we covered everything. Perfect. All right. See you guys for the rankings.